Today we are going to take a look at Tyreese and the Charred Walker from The Walking Dead Series 5. A few weeks back I reviewed Glenn, and I am happy to report that the rest of Series 5 has shown up at Toys R Us. Now, one thing I did notice is that it seems the zombie walker is short-packed for whatever reason, because out of the 3 locations I have here, only one Toys R Us had this guy. The rest of them had already sold him. So he seems to be probably 1 or 2 per case, though I don't know for sure. I'm sure he'll become easier to find here in the coming weeks when places like GameStop, Hastings, and other comic stores and whatnot get this guy in. Let's go ahead and take a look at Tyreese first. While typically I do prefer these zombies over the humans, I think this is a case where the strongest characters in this line are the human characters. The only 2 zombies in this line are the Charred Walker and Merle. And Merle's just a basic repaint. The Charred Walker, well, he's got his own issues, and I'll get into that later. But as far as the sculpt and paint go on Tyreese, spot on. McFarlane did a really great job with this. You can see there are a few washes done on this guy to really kind of bring out the grime and sweat on the shirt, which I really like. Looks exactly like the actor, and I'm always blown away by how much detail McFarlane is able to get into these smaller sculpts. Let's go ahead and get into the articulation here. We've got ankles, knees, got those ball joints on the upper leg, we've got waist articulation there, swivel, ball joints on the wrist, on the elbows, the shoulders, and the head. So just pretty much your average Walking Dead articulation there. I will say there's an issue with the articulation up here in the legs. Due to the sculpt, there's just not a whole lot you can do with that articulation, and it kind of makes it awkward to get him to stand. In fact, you kind of have to play around with it a little bit before he'll just stand straight up. It's too bad, really. So that it is just a minor issue there with those joints. Overall, a really good figure. I think fans of the show are definitely going to be all over Tyreese, Glenn, and Maggie. Now let's go ahead and move on to the Charred Walker. So here he is, guys, the Charred Walker. I kind of have mixed feelings about this guy because he has some really strong points and then he's got some pretty weak points. So let's go ahead and start with the real issues I've got with this guy. First of all, I'll go ahead and move this gas tank, and you can kind of see my first issue. He can only stand with the included stand. There's no way to get him standing by himself. And even with the stand, he leans. And eventually this guy is going to keep leaning until he falls right over. So the only way I'm able to get him to stand is by just sort of wedging that gas tank under him. And it's too bad, really. Which brings us to the next issue, the articulation. This guy is sort of in a static pose, which is more like the, I'd say, first and second series of the Walking Dead figures McFarlane produced, where you had these zombies in just one specific pose, and it was hard to kind of get them out of it without it looking funny. And I figured with Series 4, you had zombies like this, this Riker zombie, for instance, who had quite a bit of articulation. Now, not all of it was usable, but it was still available, and I like that. He had the basic articulation like a Tyreese had. And I really hope that would carry over for future series. And unfortunately, as you could see, it did not. So as far as articulation goes with this guy, you've got a joint there, and a joint there. You've got a swivel on the waist. You've got a joint there in the upper arm. And then you've got a joint there, and a joint there in the head. The only real articulation that you could use on this guy is with the arm in the head. The rest of it is just kind of pointless. It just doesn't work. And that's really unfortunate. Now, one cool thing about this guy, though, is he does sort of have an action feature in that his body is cast in a translucent orange. So you might have noticed at a certain angle it was easier to see, you know, the kind of the charred flesh, and I'll show you why. Because when light hits this guy, you can really kind of see that clear plastic, and I really like that. And I'll adjust these lights here. So you can kind of get an idea of what that looks like. Very cool. I've got no issue with the sculpt. It is a bit simplistic, especially, you know, when compared to the last wave's zombie figures. These guys just looked excellent. But you know, with that said, it's accurate to the show. They're burnt zombies. So the only real accessories this guy includes is the gas canister and the base right there. The base is necessary to get him to stand. And the gas canister, you know, it's an obvious accessory, and I'm really glad they included it, because if you want him to keep from leaning, you kind of have to just sort of wedge it in there. Fans of the show are going to be all over this series. We finally got a figure of Glenn. We've got new characters like Tyreese and Maggie, and of course we've got a Charred Walker and a zombified Merle. And who could say no to a zombified Michael Rooker, right? No one. So I think fans are really going to want to get into this line, and you could actually order it down below. If you click on that link, it'll take you to Big Bad Toy Store. Anyway, feel free to leave a comment. Let me know what you think of these guys, and as always, if you haven't done so yet, please subscribe.